What happens when a hardworking mom stands up to humiliation at a car dealership, only to have Elon Musk himself step in and change everything? Monique sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the small, neatly folded pile of cash in front of her. Each bill represented years of sacrifice. Extra shifts at the diner, canceled vacations, and the countless nights she spent sewing clothes for her neighbors to make a little extra money. She had saved for this moment, holding on to a dream she had nurtured since the first time she saw a Tesla glide silently down the streets of San Antonio. For Monique, the Tesla wasn't just a car. It was proof that her hard work could lead to something extraordinary. Growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were few, she'd promised herself that one day she'd own something that symbolizes success and forward thinking. It wasn't about showing off. It was about having a piece of the future she'd worked so hard to build for her 12-year-old son, Malik. "Mom, are you really going to get it today?" Malik's wide eyes sparkled with excitement as he leaned against the door frame. Monique turned to him and smiled. "Today's the day, baby. We're going to drive home in something that shows you anything is possible if you work hard enough." But as she grabbed her purse and checked her reflection in the mirror, a flicker of doubt crept in. Would they take her seriously? She shook the thought away. She'd come too far to let insecurities hold her back now. The drive to the dealership was short, but her mind was racing. She imagined herself behind the wheel, the sleek dashboard lighting up as she pressed the start button, Malik in the passenger seat looking proud. The vision felt so real that she caught herself smiling as she pulled into the parking lot. The dealership loomed ahead, glass walls reflecting the midday sun, and rows of Teslas gleamed like trophies. Monique parked her old Toyota in the back, careful not to stand out too much. But as she stepped out of the car, her stomach tightened slightly, a feeling she couldn't quite ignore. Monique held Malik's hand tightly as they walked toward the dealership. Her heels clicked softly against the pavement, a sound that usually made her feel confident. But today it felt like every step was a test of her resolve. She straightened her back and kept her head high, reminding herself that she had earned this moment. As they entered the showroom, the glossy floor reflected rows of pristine Teslas, each car more elegant than the last. Malik's eyes widened as he pointed excitedly at one of the models. "Mom, look, that's the one you showed me online," he exclaimed, tugging at her arm. Monique smiled, her earlier nervousness momentarily fading. "It sure is, baby. Let's take a closer look." But before they could take more than a few steps, a voice cut through the air. "Can I help you with something?" Monique turned to see a man in his mid-30s approaching. He wore a crisp shirt and a forced smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. She noticed his gaze flicker briefly to her worn handbag and then to Malik's sneakers, which had seen better days. "Yes," Monique said, keeping her voice steady. "I'm interested in the Model 3. The man raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smirk. "The Model 3? That one starts at $40,000. Are you sure you're in the right place?" The words hit her like a slap, but she refused to let it show. "I'm sure," she replied calmly, meeting his gaze. "I've been saving for this car for years." The salesman let out a short, condescending laugh. "Well, saving for years might not cut it here, ma'am. But we do have some brochures if you'd like to take one home." Malik's hand tightened in hers. Monique could feel her son's confusion and embarrassment, but she refused to let the salesman's words derail her. She took a deep breath and smiled politely. "Actually, I'd like to see the car up close," she said firmly. But the salesman's smirk only deepened as he gestured toward the door leading to the parking lot where the cars were displayed. Monique followed the salesman's gesture, her grip on Malik's hand tightening as they made their way outside. The sun bounced off the shiny exteriors of the Teslas lined up neatly in the lot. She stopped in front of a sleek black Model 3 and ran her hand over the smooth hood, imagining what it would feel like to drive it home. "Here it is," the salesman said, standing a few feet away with his arms crossed. "It's a nice car, but like I said, it's not cheap." Monique turned to face him, her expression calm but resolute. "I know the price. I've done my research." The salesman's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Well then," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm, "I hope you brought your checkbook." Malik tugged at Monique's arm, his face clouded with unease. "Mom, maybe we should go somewhere else," he whispered. Monique crouched down to his level, placing a hand on his shoulder. "No, baby," she said softly. "We're not going anywhere. We have every right to be here." She stood up, meeting the salesman's gaze again. "I'd like to speak to your manager," she said, her voice steady. The salesman let out another laugh, louder this time. "The manager? Sure, but don't be surprised if he says the same thing I did." He turned on his heel and walked toward the showroom, leaving Monique and Malik standing by the car. Malik looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mix of confusion and admiration. "You're really not scared of him, are you, Mom?" Monique smiled, though her heart was pounding in her chest. "Sometimes, people like him think they can make you feel small," she said. "But you don't let them. You stand your ground." Minutes passed, and the salesman reappeared, a taller, older man following behind him. The manager's expression was neutral, but there was an air of skepticism about him as he approached. "I understand you wanted to see me," the manager said, glancing briefly at the salesman before looking at Monique. "Yes," Monique replied. "I'm interested in buying a car, but your salesman doesn't seem to think I'm worth his time." The manager's eyebrows raised slightly, and he shot a questioning look at the salesman, who shrugged. "Well, ma'am, we don't mean to make anyone feel unwelcome," he said carefully. "If you're serious about purchasing, we can sit down and discuss financing options." Monique bristled at the word "if," but before she could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" The voice was calm yet commanding, and everyone turned to see a man in a plain black t-shirt and jeans stepping out of a nearby car. Monique didn't recognize him at first, but the look on the salesman's face said it all. The man approaching was unmistakable Elon Musk. His casual attire and relaxed demeanor contrasted sharply with the tension in the air. The salesman's smirk disappeared, replaced by a wide-eyed panic. The manager stiffened, straightening his tie as if it would somehow prepare him for what was coming. Elon glanced around, his sharp eyes taking in the scene. "I was just here for a quick visit, but this looks interesting," he said, his voice steady but tinged with curiosity. He stopped in front of Monique and extended a hand. "Hi, I'm Elon." Monique hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. "I'm Monique. This is my son, Malik," she said, her voice calm despite the storm brewing inside her. "Nice to meet you both," Elon replied, crouching slightly to greet Malik. "Cool kid," he added with a wink before straightening up. "So, what's the issue here?" The manager, clearly flustered, stepped forward. "Oh, no issue, Mr. Musk. This customer was just—" Monique interrupted, her tone firm but respectful. "I was just trying to buy a car. Your salesman seemed to think I didn't belong here." Elon's expression shifted, his casual friendliness giving way to something colder and more serious. He turned to the salesman, who now looked as though he wished he could disappear. "Is that true?" Elon asked, his voice low but cutting. The salesman stammered, his words tripping over each other. I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought." "You thought what?" Elon pressed, his gaze never leaving the man's face. The salesman faltered, his confidence crumbling. "I didn't think she was serious about buying," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Elon sighed and shook his head. You know, this company is supposed to stand for innovation and inclusivity. Not this. He gestured vaguely but pointedly at the salesman, who shrank under the scrutiny. What's your name? Matt, the salesman muttered. Well, Matt, Elon said, his tone sharp. You've just given me a perfect example of what we need to fix. Turning back to Monique, Elon's demeanor softened. Monique, I'm sorry you had to deal with this. Let's get you set up with someone who actually knows how to treat a customer. The manager jumped in, his voice overly enthusiastic. Absolutely, Mr. Musk. I'll personally assist her from here on. But Elon raised a hand to stop him. No, you won't, he said plainly. Monique, how about you and Malik join me inside? I'll walk you through everything myself. Monique's jaw nearly dropped. For a moment, she wasn't sure if she'd heard him right. Malik's eyes lit up as he whispered, Mom, is this really happening? She nodded slowly, still trying to process the surreal turn of events. But as they followed Elon back into the showroom, she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder at the salesman, who now looked pale and utterly defeated. The showroom felt different now, quieter, as if everyone inside was holding their breath. Elon led Monique and Malik to a sleek desk in the corner, bypassing the gawking employees and the manager, who hovered awkwardly at a distance. He pulled out a chair for Monique, then sat across from her, leaning forward with an easy confidence. So, Elon began, a slight smile breaking through his otherwise serious demeanor. Model 3, huh? Great choice. It's one of my favorites. Monique nodded, her voice steady now. I've been saving for years. It's not just a car to me. It's a symbol of everything I've worked for. Elon's expression softened. I get it. My mom worked hard for everything we had growing up. This isn't just about a car. It's about showing yourself and your son what's possible. Malik beamed at the mention, clearly awestruck. Mr. Musk, are you really going to help my mom get the car? Elon grinned and turned to him. You bet I am. But first, let's make sure she gets the best deal and the respect she deserves. He turned to a nearby employee, a younger woman with a professional demeanor who had been watching the scene unfold. Hey, can you bring over the paperwork for the Model 3? Yes, Mr. Musk, the woman replied, hurrying off. As they waited, Elon turned his attention back to Monique. I'm curious, what made you pick Tesla? Monique hesitated, then smiled. It's about the future. I want my son to grow up knowing that even people like us, who start with less, can still have a piece of that future. Elon nodded, clearly moved. That's exactly what Tesla stands for. You're the kind of customer we should be rolling out the red carpet for. The woman returned with the paperwork, and Elon personally walked Monique through each step. He ensured she understood everything, even making adjustments to give her the best financing terms possible. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat, Elon handed her the keys. Congratulations, Monique. You've earned this. Monique stared at the keys in her hand, disbelief mingling with joy. She looked at Malik, whose face was practically glowing, then back at Elon. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Elon replied. Just promise me one thing. When you drive this car, remember that you're part of the change. And maybe, he added with a wink, tell your friends about us. Monique laughed, a sound that felt like the release of years of tension. She stood, keys in hand, and shook Elon's hand firmly. I will. Thank you for everything. As Monique and Malik walked out to their brand new car, the once dismissive salesman stood frozen, watching them leave with an expression that hovered between disbelief and regret. But as Monique started the car, the hum of the electric engine and the sight of her son's proud smile reminded her that this moment was bigger than any of the obstacles she'd faced to get here. As Monique drove away from the dealership, the sunlight streaming through the windshield felt brighter than ever. Malik sat in the passenger seat, his hand gliding over the smooth dashboard. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "You really showed them. You didn't let them push you around." Monique smiled, glancing at her son. "I hope you remember this, Malik. People might doubt you, judge you, or try to make you feel small, but that doesn't define you. What matters is how you stand up for yourself and what you believe in." Malik nodded, his face serious now. "I'll remember, Mom. You were brave today." The car glided effortlessly down the road, and for the first time in years, Monique felt like the weight of her struggles had lifted. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the lesson she had shown her son, and maybe even the people at the dealership. The next few days brought surprises Monique could never have anticipated. A bystander at the dealership had filmed the interaction, capturing Elon Musk stepping in and Monique's poised response to the salesman's condescension. The video went viral, sparking conversations about respect, inclusivity, and perseverance. Monique received messages from people all over the country. Single mothers, young entrepreneurs, and even strangers who had been inspired by her story. Some thanked her for standing her ground, while others shared their own experiences of overcoming prejudice. One morning, as she prepared breakfast, she checked her phone and found a tweet from Elon Musk. "Every customer matters. Let's build a future where everyone feels welcome and valued." Shout out to Monique for reminding us of what's truly important. Malik burst into the room, phone in hand. "Mom, Elon Musk tweeted about you. You're famous." Monique laughed, shaking her head. "I don't want fame, baby. I just want people to know that it's okay to demand the respect you deserve." She leaned over and hugged him, her voice soft but steady. "And I want you to remember, every dream is worth fighting for." The story of Monique and her Tesla wasn't just about a car. It was a reminder to anyone watching that perseverance, dignity, and self-respect could turn even the toughest situations into victories. If you've ever faced moments where you felt underestimated or judged, remember Monique's story. Don't let anyone tell you what you're worth. Define it yourself.